Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Tuesday. It's time for office hours. I'm here with Ryan and Andy, and I'm hoping a bunch of the gang is already here in the chat. But thank you guys all for coming. We're here to answer your questions about Alexa development, smart home, whatever you've got for us. We're here to do our best to answer your questions. Welcome, Ryan and Andy. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really good. My volume is too high. So down just a little
I'm a little bummed because, as I was saying earlier, my hexagons are not lighting up today. So I'm a little bummed about that, but maybe I can fix it.
But it's weird because, I don't know, based on the lighting or whatever, they're just more reflective. They look like they're just on dimly.
They are. Yes, they are. And if I unplug them, they'll go dark. They're like slightly white, but I can't get them to respond to anything.
I have, speaking of smart home rot, I have like 20 of these.
Hey.
No, not picking on Andy. But we were
joking.
before the broadcast about how sometimes smart home devices don't always stay connected, and it's not about it. This has nothing to do with Alexa at all. It's just sometimes devices lose their connection or whatever, and it always feels like more hassle to I've got to go reset that device, and I've got to remember how to do that, and there's all sorts of other things. What app do I use? But I have a whole bunch of these. The plan was right along here underneath this shelf, the whole back where that wood is there was going to be a whole stretch of these. And I can't get them to work. It's driving me crazy. They will only turn on and be green and nothing else. The controller won't respond. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
That's more interesting than white. So I don't know.
Anyway, that was supposed to be the final amazing touch to this wall behind me here, and I just can't get it to happen.
Oh, and I have internet news.
Oh,
so my internet hasn't been great here.
Right, it's based in space.
Right, it's based in space. So I'm just going to move to Seattle in a couple months, and then just get a new house with new internet, and everything's gonna be great. So
that seems like an extreme solution to an internet problem, but
no, I think it makes sense. So it's reasonable, totally reasonable.
That's exciting, man. So
yes.
So you're staying on the team. Nothing's changing job-wise. I want to make sure everybody knows that. But
I'm going to the mothership. Yeah.
You are just moving to Seattle. That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll be excited.
And from what I recall, you're going to the east side.
Yeah, Andy, I haven't talked about this, but we decided to go to Bellevue instead of Seattle. Sorry, man. I know you're the Seattle side.
Oh, I didn't know I was pushing late breaking news.
Outing me live.
It's okay. We can still be friends.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Alan Furstenberg said, I wonder if Matter will have anything to do with this whole smart home rot problem we might have. I don't have a comment on that. Andy, do you have anything you want to say about Matter? I don't have anything I want to say.
It's possible. I don't have any comments on it right now. It's an odd place to be with Matter. It's an odd place to be with Matter.
Andy?
What is Matter? We've talked about this on previous broadcasts. So.
Yeah. Ryan doesn't always show up, so it's fine.
All right. Well, I mean, I guess
every week too.
What's that?
New people show up in the audience too.
That's true. Matter is a new industry standard that is being worked on by the Connectivity Standards Alliance that is made up of a bunch of different companies like Amazon, Apple, Google, and a number of others to try and figure out a way to standardize certain protocols, right? So you think about the setup experience, trying to standardize the setup experience so that you don't have to learn a different way to set up your device with different networks or different providers like Google or Amazon or Apple. And so it makes it easy to set up your device and get it onto your network. And then there's also some local commands that Matter has so that you can control the device locally. So it's pretty cool. Unfortunately, well, I know we made a number of announcements about Matter in the past year. The Matter spec is still being finalized, and I don't think you can see as it's being built on GitHub. There's a repo there that you can go check it out. But in the meantime, I want to be careful what I say about it until until it's ready.
Well, the promise of it is very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
just getting to the promise. That's all.
Exactly. I mean, the promise is that if you buy a Matter device, it'll work with any Matter admin. You don't have to worry about who makes that Matter admin, right? So from a consumer standpoint, it's really cool. So
awesome.
Yeah.
The most pressing question of the day comes from Oxygen Box, Ryan.
All right.
He's wondering if
really
food is actually chicken friendly.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I think the chickens, which we've been calling our tenants, are probably going to stay here, and hopefully whoever wants our house wants chickens as well.
Nice.
I looked into it. Driving across, the country with 6 chickens in the back of your car is not an ideal situation. So I think they're gonna have to stay here, sadly.
Got it. So if you're the one leaving, it sounds like you were their tenants.
Well, no, they pay us with eggs. So
That's true.
Yeah.
Well,
but I'll be sad to leave.
You can have chickens. You can have chickens in your backyard. Not very many, I don't think. Maybe it's like 3 or something like that. But
yeah,
at least in Seattle, you can have chickens in your backyard if you want.
Taps were very insensitively added. Chickens travel well as a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
True.
Yes, that is true.
True.
Egg salad sandwich. I'm sure it's what he's talking about, right?
The eggs. Yes. Or like a breakfast sandwich, right?
Yes.
All right. I have a lot of people here. Super excited to see all of you. But we don't have any questions yet, other than the where is Ryan moving and can he have chickens questions. And of course, Alan's question about Matter. But do we have anything else for or from people? Brian Tarbox from Boston. Good to see Brian.
Love it.
Well, maybe this is a good opportunity to drop our little bit of news, Ryan.
Yeah.
Wait, there's more news than Ryan Lee coming to Seattle?
I know.
Yeah. Yes. More
I can't
important
handle
news,
this.
I think.
So for those of you that are fans of Alexa Conversations, or maybe even if you haven't used it, maybe the reason you haven't used it is because it hasn't been available internationally. Well, we have some good news for you. Just popped a well, I thought I just popped a thing in the comments. It's coming. It's getting there. It's chugging.
Yep.
I see it.
Looks like I got some errors on pushing that to some of the channels. Anyway,
LinkedIn's having trouble today.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is, and it looks like it couldn't push the comment to Twitch and Facebook for some reason. Thank you, Tapster, for adding that into Twitch. Anyway, Alexa Conversations was recently announced that it's being launched in more languages. And one of the questions that came from Tapster, which was, are there any non-trivial skills using Alexa Conversations successfully? Well, we did an interesting hackathon at the end of 2020, I believe. Not long after Alexa Conversations had been put in beta. So this was pre-GA. And one of our Alexa champions, his name's John Gilliland. He goes by Bondad on a lot of social networks. He may even be hanging out here today. He built a really interesting non-trivial skill, I think, called Art Museum. And what he did is he used Alexa Conversations to consume the API from the Chicago Museum of Art. And he was able to build an experience, mind you, with a lot of heavy lifting. There's no shortage of work in any skill that you build. But he was basically able to build a skill that allowed you to tour the Chicago Museum of Art and look around and listen to experiences and have it read to you like the information about the individual pieces of art. But the Chicago Museum of Art, as part of their API, also provided a bunch of other audio files. So it wasn't just Alexa reading a description to you, but it was actually like a voice actor going through a lot of those things. They had shared a lot of that information as part of their API. So he was able to use Alexa Conversations to play with that. And I believe the last time I checked, Art Museum should still be available in the Alexa Skills Store. The downside to some of these technologies that we use, like Alexa Conversations, is that is not broadly advertised when you go to use a skill. So it's not like in the Alexa skill store, you can go see the Alexa Conversations ones versus like the interaction model ones. So we kind of have to know which ones are Alexa Conversations and which ones aren't. And I don't have a deep knowledge of that, but I do know that Art Museum was a fantastic example of that. I'm going to see if I can find a link to the skill for you.
Yeah, and Prisoner 4044 was asking like how to get started, and I posted into the comments section a tutorial we have on Alexa Conversations that I think does a really good job of getting you hands-on with it. So you build a skill, you work through the UI, and you build a skill powered by Alexa Conversations. And I think it's a really good example to get your brain wrapping around like what Alexa Conversations can do for you. Because it's a completely different way of approaching the conversational design.
Yep.
This particular tutorial is a little, it was released, like a year, more almost 2 years ago. It's getting updated soon. So there's a few little typos here and there as the UI has changed, but it's a really good tutorial to get you exposed to Alexa Conversations.
Yep.
I really like it.
The short way that I like to explain Alexa Conversations to people is that when we sit down and think about an interaction model and sample utterances and slots and all that stuff, you are building a model to define what the AI is going to do, how it's going to respond. You're providing the training data for AI to make decisions. Alexa Conversations kind of takes that to the next level in that it uses AI to feed its AI. So a lot of the conversational aspects of your experience aren't written down. It's actually using its own intelligence engine to understand what it is to be said, what should be said to the user next. How do I manage this conversation? A lot of that interaction model-y stuff that we normally think of pretty manually is handled more dynamically for you using Alexa Conversations. But it is it's an early kind of one-way door decision. Mm-hmm. I use that term. I'm never sure if people, I think people probably get what I mean. But if you think about one-way doors versus two-way doors, right? You can go back and change your mind and do things. But when you make a decision about building a skill, when you choose Alexa Conversations or you choose a traditional like interaction model style, those are pretty one-way door decisions. You're not going to easily be able to convert your stuff back or across to the other one. So it is very actively a decision you have to make at the early onset about what you want to do with your skill. But that being said, it does have a lot of power and it does save you a lot of time in building out your conversations and how things respond. And instead you get to manage just the API interactions and moving data around and stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah, the Art Institute of Chicago. Thank you for the correction. The skill is called Art Museum. I provided a link in the chat, but I think Oxygen Box corrected me. It's the Art Institute of Chicago. My apologies. Gavin Watson wants to, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. I've answered Alan's question about conversations, getting started with him, why you should be interested. Hopefully that covered that a little bit. Ryan recommended that tutorial, which I think is a great idea. Gavin Watson said, does anyone have an Astro already? I don't believe so. I've only seen one at all, and that is in our like internal smart home studio. We have I've talked about this before, but we have about half of one floor in one of our office buildings in Seattle that's dedicated to being a smart home. And it has a full working garage, well, at least a garage and a garage door. It has regular plumbing. There's a whole bathroom, bedroom, kitchen, family room, all that stuff. So all of those things are laid out and they're nicely decorated and organized. We're going to start doing a lot of shoots there, I think, in the near future. And, like the toilet works and you can flush it with your voice and you can turn the shower on and set the temperature with your voice and all that stuff. But there are signs on those things that say, please don't actually use this toilet, because they don't want to have to treat it like a normal bathroom toilet in the office. So it's there and it's functional, but we don't actually use it because it's there more just to see how the things work. So anyway, the smart home is very cool. And I have seen an Astro there. That is the only place that I've seen one in person. My understanding was that we would have seen one at CES, but due to COVID and everything in January, Amazon pulled out of CES, and so obviously Astro did not make the trip. QU311 wants to know, in the analytics on a live skill, what is the difference between unique customers and unique persons? Ryan, have you spent any time looking into this yet?
I don't have any published skills, so my stats are very, very small to be able to discern this, but this is a lively debate in the Alexa community Slack, I know, on what this actually is. And there's questions on whether this is like an accurate number or if there's issues with this number, but I haven't dove into it in any super detail. Yeah.
That is quite all right. So my understanding, and again, this was a feature that was added into the analytics at the same time that we added skill personalization. And so for those of you that are familiar with personalization, this is the capability to recognize an individual speaker. And I don't mean like a smart home speaker. I mean like a human speaker. Human person. And as a result of that, you get this person ID in your skill manifest. If a voice is recognized, and it can say, oh, this is the same person consistently versus this person, where in previous versions of skills, we would have just relied on a user ID. And that user ID would just be based on who was logged into the account on the device. And if my daughter or my wife or anybody else that walks into my house talks to that device, it treats them all the same. They're all the same person all the time. So what skill personalization allows you to do is recognize individual voices and then tailor the experience of the skill to that specific voice using the person ID as the unique identifier rather than the user ID, which is the owner of the account. So that long story being told, when we talk about unique customers versus unique persons, unique customers really maps to user IDs, unique persons maps to people IDs. And so it's a confusing statistic because if people don't have voice profiles set up on their Alexa account, then you're not going to get person IDs. And so it is very possible for you to get a higher number of customers than you're getting numbers of persons, people, because for every user that doesn't have a voice profile set up at all, they would count as one customer, 0 people, because there's no unique voice to map against. But in my household, we have 4 people set up. And so there are 4 different voices that all map to the same customer ID. And so in that case, we would register in the analytics as 1 customer, 4 people, if each of us use the skill independently. So those are the differences in the 2 numbers. Those persons that you see in the statistics are related specifically to the individual people's voices that have been heard. Hope that helps. We need to do a better job of documenting this and explaining it. But that is the basic explanation I can offer today. Swagly Mongoli wants to know if there's a possibility to be a beta tester of new Alexa features. I think there were beta testers for the recognition of sounds and routines. If so, how to be? I'd really like to test Alexa features to help you improve them. Well, I think the only way really that I see this often happens, most of it happens at Alexa Live. We announce a bunch of stuff. If we think about 2021, right? We announced a bunch of things, and a lot of them were in 2 states. One was what we call a pre-announce. We're just telling people about this cool thing that we're working on, but we don't actually have anything to show yet. In many cases, we're in an alpha phase at best. The next phase beyond that is developer preview. Developer preview is a invite-only beta program. Let's call it a private beta, maybe even a private alpha. In many cases, they don't have a lot of the documentation written. You may need some hand-holding even to implement some of the features. And certainly you would need to be on an approval list of some kind in the system to even let you use those features. So developer preview is generally the earliest that I see external people get access to our stuff. And my recommendation would be when you're attending Alexa Live this year, or if you go back and look at Alexa Live stuff from last year, those developer preview forms still exist. And filling them out should get you one of 2 results. One is, hey, awesome, you have a use case we really want to explore. Please come on board. We'll get you into the stuff. The other one, which is unfortunately more common, is, hey, unfortunately, right now we don't have enough room in our program to accommodate everyone. And so we will keep you posted as soon as we get into private beta. That is the more likely outcome. So I want to make sure I'm setting your expectations. But in order to get that early access and help shape things and give us a good feel for how you think things will work, those developer previews are probably your best bet. but there isn't like a formal crew of people that are beta testers that we just ship all the code to or anything like that. Each one is kind of done as its own unique experiment. All right. Dana Voice, I got to get the context on this one. They changed some of the names for things like responses and such.
This is Alexa Conversations.
Yes.
I think.
I got an honorable mention kind of prize in that same hackathon. Oh, nice. For like choosing a tennis racket. That's very cool. Yeah, they probably have changed some stuff. I think a lot of that is a result of the Alexa Conversations development language, description language. It's ACDL,
language.
Which is a markup language for Alexa Conversations that you can use rather than just using the interface that we have on the dev console. So ACDL probably forced them to rethink or reinvent some of the naming conventions. That would be my guess, but it should still work as familiarly as it did before. Okay. Ooh, Andy, Harry Hart, do you have any thoughts on this topic? I don't know anything about it.
I don't. Smart properties is kind of this gray area for me. I know it exists, and I know there are people on our team that are focused on it, but in terms of the technical roadmap, it's not something I have any visibility into. But I do know that as we announce things, we like to, Amazon loves to make blog posts. So there is a blog for Alexa for Business. I don't see that information or any announcements on there that you're referring to, Harry, but I think the usual events, like Alexa Live is when we make announcements. So, definitely, I don't know what we're announcing, but I couldn't share even if I did. But I think that the two options I would say would go to our blog posts, go to the blogs, and also to go to Alexa Live and see what is said about it.
And for those of you that couldn't see the question, Harry's asking a bunch of questions about a bunch of our smart properties style things like Alexa for Business and healthcare and hospitality and residential and senior living. I don't have any insight into the news that Harry's reporting, so I'm not here to confirm or deny any of that, but he's asking questions about if APIs will change and if specific commands are going to change and how he can get ahead of the roadmap for things that are related to Alexa for Business. Well, as we remind people here all the time, we are not here to share future roadmap. One of my recommendations, if you really want to dig deep and get to know people, they would probably get mad at me if I just started handing out email addresses and said, hey, yeah, just reach out to this person. They own that stuff and they'll talk to you. But it's pretty easy to find those people if you just go hunting on like LinkedIn and stuff. But having those direct partnerships probably will benefit you more than asking us. Another option would be to go to the Contact Us forum. They can often help you shed some light on how things are going to move or change, especially if anything's been announced. They can be pretty helpful about getting you connected or at least getting you the answers that you're looking for. So if you haven't, this is my opportunity to throw something up on the screen. And you can go to alexa.design/contact us. And you can fill out a request there for that kind of information. Now, I can't make any promises about the kind of response that you'll get, but I would think that would be your best bet because they can then navigate and kind of play the proxy between the product owners themselves and the questions that you have. So hopefully that will help. All right. Mon Howard says, I'm happy about the expanded locales and languages. Still have to look at the upgrades. Our skill is built completely on conversations.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool. Mon, if you have an opportunity, I haven't looked forward yet, but if you want to mention what your skill is, I'm sure maybe some people would want to check it out. Yeah, I'm always excited when we support new things in new languages and locales. That is often a very clear indicator to me. I don't know that that's a clear indicator to the business, but it's an indicator to me that we have found some success or we think that is going in the right direction. They often pilot a lot of these features in the United States to make sure that they have them working properly and solidly, and that they are worthwhile features to continue with, and then they push them out into the greater world.
Yeah. I think Alexa Conversations is going to be one that just keeps taking off and more and more momentum behind it. I think. I think there's some who are saying like this is the future of creating skills with Alexa is going to be around Alexa Conversations once we get parity and all this other support behind it. I mean, there's a lot of work needs to be done, but I think when I played with it, I found it really, really, really impressive what you can do with it.
I think Alexa Conversations is the secret to making things more accessible. I think you have opportunities there to create really robust skills in a low code approach, where with interaction model stuff, like you're going to be writing a lot of code. Like that's just, there's no real way around that. But I think with Alexa Conversations, you could build some pretty robust conversational interactions without having to write very much code at all. And I think that is why people see that as the future, because it gives it access to more people to do more things.
Alexa takes on a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah. I think of it the same way that I think of like WordPress 10 years ago. Like it used to be, it was pretty hard. Like if you wanted a website, like it was a lot of work to build that stuff and get it set up and design a thing and make the forms work. And if just, if you're trying to do e-commerce, forget it. And now anymore, like between Shopify and WordPress and all the other vendors that are out there, like you can build a really robust website with a lot of really interesting capabilities without being a developer at all. And I think that's pretty amazing. So I don't know if I'm drawing parallels there or not, but that seems like a possible future for where we're headed. Q311 confirmed my suspicions. I've lost my mouse. He has 1,388 unique customers and one unique person. I don't know how rampant voice profiling has been for consumers. I don't know how many people have actually set that stuff up. That would be an interesting statistic to look at. But my suspicion is that's why, is because most people probably have not set up their voice profile. I don't know that I'm right on that. That's not an official Amazon bit of news, but that would be my suspicion. All right. Alan says, speaking of personalization, during the same session, if two people speak during different rounds of the conversation and both have their voices registered, will it come up as two different person IDs? My understanding is yes. The key is understanding how the skill is built. If you are using the person ID, if you're using the person ID as your unique identifier for an experience, so let's say you have a trivia game, right? And you, in your trivia game, you use the unique identifier as a deciding factor for what level the user's at, or what kind of questions they might get, or what they have access to. Then yes, if you open the trivia game and you start playing as player A, speaker A, person A, and then you answer a question as person B, depending on the logic of your skill, that could completely like take them back out and be like, hey, welcome to the trivia game. Here's your first question. But that's really up to the developer to handle how that is decided. But yes, the person ID that comes through in the manifest, in the skill request, it would be a different person ID for sure. And I have played with that, so I can definitely verify that is the case.
Cool.
Ooh, Don's asking the hard questions. When is Alexa Live 2022?
How did he know about this? How did he find out?
Did he get some secret emails? I don't have any information to share. I cannot confirm or deny that there will be an Alexa Live 2022. But I would keep your eye on your inboxes, and at some point there will be an announcement. But I don't have anything to share today. All right, QU311. I got to find a better way to pronounce that. QU311? Like, I don't know if it's a reference to the band.
Is it Quell? Maybe it's Quell.
It could be Quell.
I'm going to go with Quell.
I need someone to give me a pronunciation for that. Ideally, the person that has these.
Like Leet Speak? Is that still?
Yeah, it could be Quell. Thing? I like that.
Yeah.
It's like a Questlove kind of thing. Like he uses numbers in his name too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go with it.
By default, the development version of my skill runs on my home Alexa. To get the live version of my skill to run on my home Alexa, do I go into the dev version of my skill, and in the test tab, change skill testing is enabled into off? This is one of the developer's dilemmas.
This is a good question.
Here's what I recommend, because I've done this. I have, as part of my Amazon family, you can find this if you go to Amazon.com and look for your family. If you are a single person, this is super easy. If you have other people in your household, it can be a little more complicated. But your Amazon family allows you to add one other adult and I think up to 2 children to your account, to your Amazon account. In there, so I'll just use my example. I have my account, and then in my Amazon family, and this is all free to set up, I have my wife, and she has her own Amazon account. But we are linked as a family. And so we share some benefits and perks and Prime and other stuff like that. But another benefit to this is that on your devices, if you have Amazon Family set up, you can say, switch accounts. So let me demonstrate this for you. I do, Alexa, who am I?
Jeff is speaking. This is Jeff's account.
So you can see we got 2 things there, right? She recognized my voice, and she knew that this is my account. Now, if I say, Alexa, switch accounts, Alexa, switch accounts.
Now in Sarah Blankenberg's account.
Alexa, who am I? Alexa, who am I?
Jeff is speaking. This is Sarah Blankenberg's account.
That right there is the full illustration of what we're talking about when we talk about customers versus people. The customer is the account owner. The person speaking is the person speaking in this case. So what you can see, though, is I switched over to my wife's account. When I do this, just by using my voice, the device is now set to be completely my wife's account. So it has the skills she's enabled, the things she cares about, access to her music, all of that kind of stuff. But she is not me. She is not my developer account, which means that just by saying switch accounts, I can now use my skill. And there's one other step we have to take, but I can now use my skill, even if it's never been published. And I'm off and running, and it treats it like a totally different person, and they get access to the production, access all that stuff. So the one other step that we have to take, and I'll mute my device, is to either add that person as a beta user. That's probably the best, easiest way to do this. And if you go into the developer console and you go into distribution, there's an opportunity to create a beta program. You can add that email address to the beta list, send them an invitation, they click on the link, and then you just do that once. And then you have 90 days to test as much as you'd like. And they will be using whatever your production version of the skill is. The other option that I was thinking would be possible, I'm actually not sure how that would work, is in the developer console, before you actually get to the console. If you think about your Amazon developer account, so never mind being in the Alexa developer console, but like if you just go to developer.amazon.com, there's a place where you can add other users to give them access to your developer resources. I'm going to show this because I'm not explaining it well. Okay, so I'm going to go to developer.amazon.com. If you guys haven't done this, this is something else you might want to consider. There's a number of reasons why you might want to do this, but it does require some trust, which is why I don't generally recommend this, except for times when you absolutely trust this person. Okay, so I'm at developer.amazon.com. You guys can see my screen, right, Andy?
Yep.
Okay, so up here, I'm going to sign in to my account. Of course, you're going to make me do that now. Come on. Where's the text? And of course, it's not coming through. There we go. Okay. So I'm here again. So if I go to Developer Console, you end up on this screen that gives you all of these different things: Alexa, App Store, Dash, Game On, all sorts of stuff. But over here in Settings, you have is it security profiles or is it's user permissions? I couldn't remember which one it was, but under this user permissions tab, you have the ability to add additional users to your developer account. And so I could, if I wanted to put Ryan or Andy here, I could put their email address in. I can give them a specific role, whether the developer, marketer, analyst, whatever, and I can save that. That then gives them access to my developer account, and I can show you what this looks like too. If I go back here to Alexa Skills Kit, when you're logged in, you can see that I have access to other developer accounts right now. So it allows you, while you're here in the developer console, to decide which profile do I want to use, which means that you could have multiple people working on the same skill in the interaction model, all that kind of stuff. But these are other accounts that have granted me access to their skills. This scavenger stand, the reason this is here, and the CeraV also, I had a plan, this is like 4 years ago, I just haven't turned anything off, was that I wanted to build like 30 different skills, really simple skills, and hide them all over the skill store, which means they can't have the same publisher, like they can't have anything to do with each other. And then basically use them to push a scavenger hunt across Alexa. So you'd have to figure out a clue and figure out a specific utterance that you wanted the user to say. And when they said that utterance, they would land in the second skill. And the second skill would give them some hints or some clues or a puzzle or something. And the solution to the puzzle would be the next utterance to get to the next skill, and on and on. And so in my mind, the way this had to work is I had to have like 30 different developer accounts so that I could publish all of those skills separately without having to, because otherwise you could just go look and see all the skills that I've published and just be like, oh, that must be the next one. I'll just open that one. Does that make? I don't know if that makes sense. Anyway,
that makes sense. Yeah,
that was something that I was really interested to put together. Never finished it, but it was something cool to work on. So anyway, those are two different ways that you can get access, give people access to your skill. The second way that I just showed you is far riskier because you are granting them access to your developer account, which means not only can they edit your interaction models and change the endpoint of your skill, they can delete the whole thing too. And so you really don't want to grant access to people that you don't fully trust. And again, if you're working with somebody on a project and they have the same expected outcomes, I think it's fair to let them have that kind of access. But your other option, of course, is to do everything local development, push all that stuff to a GitHub repository, and then once in a while deploy that on your own. But you'll find if you're working on a team of 4 or 5 people on a skill, you quickly become a bottleneck. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to give people access like this. So Quell, Q311, hopefully that answers your question. But you can also go in and toggle that thing. I just feel like that's kind of a hassle also. All right. Habuma1's got a long one here. ACDL versus browser-based conversations is a source of mild frustration for me. Specifically, last I checked, ACDL is still considered beta. That's true. ACDL uses different terminology than browser-based conversations. And perhaps the most frustrating, 3, last I checked, ACDL is AWS Lambda hosted only, while browser-based conversations is Alexa hosted only. I really like ACDL, and I wish I could do it with Alexa hosted skills.
Interesting.
I feel your pain. I completely agree. The way that this was approached, often they treat these like science experiments, and let's see how this thing works, and let's see how we play with it. And I find that if we build a technology, regardless of what that is, if you look across the last 5 years, if we build a technology that is code-based, like ACDL, like the SDKs, like the CLI, they tend to be Lambda hosted only, not in the developer console, because that's an entire other hurdle of work, is to get it working and then also get it working and have a UI in the developer console. And so this is a very, very iterative process, and you guys are really far closer to the product, I think, than sometimes you realize. The stuff that you're using is new and fresh, and they're constantly making releases. And so as a result of that, I just think they're not there yet. But Habuma, I can assure you their intention is parity across a number of factors. Languages, locales, developer console versus local development. The expectation eventually, but eventually is the linchpin in all of this, the expectation is that they will be supported everywhere eventually. But initially, it always starts someplace. And so ACDL started as Alexa hosted, as a Lambda only local development style approach, where Alexa Conversations initially, again, meant for people that aren't planning on doing a ton of coding, was built with a UI basis first. I don't know that there's a right or wrong to that, but the alternative to this is that we just wait another year to ever see it. And so I feel like this is more customer friendly. At least we're getting opportunities to play with it in any way than just waiting until they've got everything done.
Their intention is not to have multiple disparate ways that are not congruent with each other to create skills. So we will see these all come together. The question is when, and the answer to that is when it's ready. Like we specifically don't have release dates for things because we want to make sure that things are done properly in the right way. But I know that internally, like they acknowledge these discrepancies and they understand that it causes frustrations, but like these will get resolved over time. And like Jeff said, Alexa Conversations I think is way ahead of its time. I think they gave it to us super early so that they could get feedback. And I know that feedback from the community and from other devs is super powerful in helping shape the roadmap. So hang in there is my answer.
Yeah, being an early adopter has its costs sometimes, unfortunately. All right. Dana Voice wanted to know what platform Harry was on. Harry, we were talking earlier about a bunch of other stuff related to Alexa for Business and a number of other things. He was on YouTube, so you can find us at youtube.com/AlexaDevs. Santosh wants to know, by using Alexa, can we create WWF-like games? A couple of things to unpack here. I assume WWF, he means the World Wrestling Federation, which is now World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. They changed that like 15 years ago, but I still in my head call it WWF because I grew up on Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan like the best of us. So I think that's what you're referring to. Your other option would be to refer to the World Wildlife Fund, which I don't generally associate with games. And this is the reason that WWE changed their name. So
I don't think it's either of those. My guess, I'd like to hear more, is because last week SmartNet TV talked about Alexa support for other languages. I think it was Georgian. So it could be something I'm not aware of, but I don't know. Please let us know what WWF stands for.
Yeah. In
this particular case.
And then we'll move on to SmartNet TV's question, which is, what is the max number of routines and actions?
Oh, sorry.
No,
I got those mixed up.
Yeah, that's all right.
No
SmartNet, I'm not aware of a hard limit on routines and actions.
I found one.
Andy might be.
I did a little research. Amazon has a little customer service article about Alexa routines. And it says you can have up to 99 routines on your account. So It doesn't say how many actions you can have for routine, but apparently the limit is 99.
That
I've never
third
tried
digit memory buffer, we couldn't afford it.
Nice, arbitrary, yeah. At least do 127.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's get bitwise about it. Yeah. Okay. So it looks like it's 99. Now, is that a combination of? Well, what he says, routines and actions. Do we have a thing called actions? That's generally a term I see used for Google.
Yeah, maybe. I was thinking of like an action in the routine, like when you say this, do this, but I don't.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Okay, but 99 routines. That's good to know because that also that could affect a lot of things as people start thinking about how they want to use more robust routines to do more complex things. 99 is a lot, but it's not that many. There's always going to be people that are like, but I need 600.
Right.
Interesting. Okay. Moving on to Fabio on YouTube. He says, I'm developing a skill called Atlas Divino, which is the invocation name. And sometimes the Alexa understands Atrastovideo. Atrastovino, I think a synonym for invocation names could be a good idea. I agree with you. And part of the way that we're trying to build our name-free invocation, you might see that referred to as NFI, is to accommodate some of those kinds of situations where you can not only build synonyms, which is good, but more likely, most users probably don't know the name of your skill. And so they're just going to say, I want to do this thing. Now, I don't know your language. That feels like it might be about wine, but I
have
don't
to drop. Sorry, guys. Continue on. I have to drop.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll see you
guys. Bye.
But I would think that people might say things like, I want to know more, assuming this is about wine. I want to know things about wine, or I want to know this, right? And your skill can be funneled forward as a result of that. Now that Ryan's gone, we can talk about him.
Yes, right.
He mentioned earlier that he's moving. And so I think his doorbell just rang, which is why he had to go. He's having some drywallers come in to like do some work on the house before they try to sell it. So he warned me that might be a possibility they'd have to go. But I think that's why he had to duck out. So Fabio, hopefully that helps. I think name-free invocation is the future. I hope it's the future. That including, routines and a number of other aspects. I'm hoping that we can make it much, much easier for people to find your skill. That's part of the discovery thing that we continue to work on. Tapster says, on skill personalization, I suspect, guess, if you do not have it explicitly enabled for your skill, it confusingly defaults to 1 in the analytics pages. 1 seems like the obvious default, but I think it might actually default to 0, because if you're not providing a person ID at all, then I think it's probably going to be not incremented at all. So I think based on the number we saw earlier from, I don't remember who said that. It was Quell, QU311, said he had 1,388 unique customers and 1 person ID. So that seems like a really big ratio. I would think more people have it in set up than that, but that'll be something interesting to look into. I'll have to ask some questions about that. Okay. Brian Tarbach says, I'd rather see Alexa spend more time on understanding simple things. Last week, we argued about Alexa play upload on Prime Video. I just said that out loud. Eventually succeeded with Alexa play upload on Fire TV. Yeah. So I agree with you. This is an impossibly hard problem, though. And I sympathize, especially with the folks that are working with music and video. Because, like, I'm sure there's a song or a movie called Prime. What do you do then? Play Prime? Like, what do you mean? Did you mean the movie? Did you mean play my music? Did you mean play Prime Video? I think that these are really, really hard problems that are not clear and obvious. The manual, like I'm a very data oriented. Like when I build a database, I like to like handcraft even all the data that gets put into it. I'm very particular about those kinds of things. And I think I personally, I don't think most people would like this, but I think I personally would love the ability to have sample phrases that I, as a user, define for everything. So that when I say this, I mean this. When I say this, do this thing. Now, I wouldn't want to do that for everything, like each granular video or whatever, but I would have a name for my TV as an example. And I would like to say, play it on this TV, even though the TV isn't actually the thing I'm playing it on. I'm playing it on my Fire TV stick or, a Roku device or whatever. I feel like I'm down for the configuration. I want to go in and say, this is what I mean. These are the things that I'm trying to do. These are the things that I'm trying to accomplish. It requires some data management, and certainly, there's time invested in doing that. But with all the other crazy smart home stuff, I already do a lot of that anyway. I have to name each device and then organize them into groups and set up routines. Like I'm already doing a bunch of that stuff, and I don't really mind it. But I don't think most people probably would want to do that. And that's because of that, because we start leaning on the AI to make these decisions. There's never going to be a time where we don't have these big, vague buckets of opportunity. What did they mean? And you have more to add to this.
Yeah, I used to work on the Fire TV team. I know that there's some challenges with play, right? Trying to figure out, are you talking about playing music or playing, a video? And so it tries to pick up other cues from the context, other information you provide. one thing you can try, and doesn't really answer your question. Well, it wasn't really a question, but just one thing that we use instead sometimes is say watch when you want to watch a video. So you'd say watch upload on Prime Video, because you can't watch an audio stream, right? So it's
Right.
more prescriptive about watching video.
If I named something that was explicitly like a podcast or something that is an audio only format, what happens if I say watch it?
It might try to play it anyway. I don't know. I haven't tried that. Or sometimes it might complain saying that, there's no video service or couldn't find a video related to it with that title or something like that. That could also be, I vaguely recall things like that happening.
All right. In the spirit of time, I'm going to keep moving. We have 8 minutes left and 400 questions left.
Oh no.
I don't know where this one's going. Anil on YouTube says, how do you isolate the bathroom noises for Alexa to recognize and listen to voice commands, like the water from the shower or the exhaust fan noise? Well, I can tell you that I do this, and I am 100% blown away every time. So I have in my bathroom, I have there's 2 sinks, and in between the sinks there's like a cabinet tower that goes up to almost the ceiling. And on top of that, when we had this bathroom remodeled, I had them put a power outlet up on top, knowing that I was going to put an echo in the top of this tower so that I never see it, but I just have this like ambient voice in the bathroom. And near it, there, like right to the right of those sinks, there is a big shower. And it's a glass-walled shower, so there's only an opening at the top. And while I'm in the shower, even with the music loud and the shower running, and the exhaust fan running, which is pretty quiet, it hears me perfectly without even me having to raise my voice. It's remarkable. So there's a couple of aspects here that get into beam forming. I don't know if you guys have heard about or read about this at all, but there's some technology built into Echo devices. I have one here I can show you. So this, so I have this is the original Echo Dot here. You can't see it, but there are 7 microphones on this. So imagine north, south, and then like northeast, northwest, southeast, and southwest on this device. And then there's one right in the center. That makes 7. So on every one of these devices, like any of these Echo Dots, certainly on Echoes and other audio-only format devices, you will find this technology. And what it does is it recognizes where the sound is coming from. So if you're speaking from this side, this is the microphone that will pick it up. The other 6 will take all the noises they're hearing, and they will cancel that stuff out. So it's a subtractive audio, and that leaves only the audio that this one is hearing uniquely as a way to funnel that through. And that's the audio that gets sent to the cloud and processed. So it is actually doing on board. It is actually doing some audio calculation to say, I don't want to listen to this stuff. I only want to hear the audio that's coming from this one microphone. That is how it is able to eliminate things like exhaust fans and sinks and showers. But you'll also find that let's have 10 people over to your house and stand across the room from your Echo and say, play this song or whatever. Obviously you got to use the wake word, but you say some command, it'll hear you. And it can do that because it can hear all the other sounds and kind of block those things out. The one exception to this rule, it's not necessarily a limitation of the device as much as it is acoustics. A lot of people like to take their Echoes and put them in a corner. So like where 2 walls meet, it just happens to sit on a countertop or whatever. That really deteriorates the capability of that beamforming technology, because now the sound is coming in and bouncing off all those walls and hitting all the microphones at the same time. And it can make it very challenging for it to screen that stuff out. It still hears you fine, but it can sometimes have challenge in hearing some of those sounds and picking out just your voice from everything else. Okay, continuing on. Tapster says you also have to have enabled the skill to request permissions for user consent for personalization. Yes, you do have to also turn that on. But that's the only way that you would see the person IDs in the first place, so that is accurate. Quell clarified that Quell is the appropriate pronunciation. That family stuff is cool. I may have tried that earlier because I have my son in there, but I don't see a way to add my wife. Well, you have the ability to add 2 adults and 2 children. So if your son is registered as your other adult, which is an easy mistake to make, that's why you can't add your wife. That would be my guess. Jokesta on Twitch says, any way to change customers along with the person? My wife has a separate Spotify, and it's awkward to switch constantly. Outside of doing what I just showed, which is the switch users, I'm not aware. Well, I take that back because I'm still on my wife's account, I think. Alexa, play my music.
Shuffling your music on Amazon Music.
Nope. Alexa, stop. So it didn't do what I thought it was going to do, which was to. So I have on my account, I have Apple Music set up as my default music provider. And I expected it to say, I'm now playing Jeff's Apple Music, and it didn't do that. So no, it does not appear that. I was hoping you could just do it with your voice, but it does not do it that way. So no, you would have to switch accounts. Hubuma did some research. I'll share what Hubuma said here on Twitch. Alexa Live 2021 was first announced on May 20th, 2021, and registration opened June 15th. The date of the event was July 21, 2021. I'd imagine similar timing for the hypothetical 22 event. That's accurate. Hypothetical is the right way to define it. I cannot confirm or deny any of that schedule. All right. Dana Boy says we should be backing up all of our skills by downloading them. Agreed. I have backups in the other way, and then I develop locally. And so anything that you find in the developer console is kind of the backup for me because I already have it locally and stored in a GitHub repository. So that is how I back things up. I have my own backups done first, and then I just deploy to the console when I need it. Okay, moving very fast. Ren, this is for you, Andy. After account linking, the first request is Alexa discovery request to discover the device name, endpoint ID of the devices the skill reports. You can trigger the device discovery also manually by saying, Alexa, discover my smart home devices. I also noticed that discovery request is sent every few hours in the background. Is that normal behavior? I could not find any definition of the documentation. Is there any?
I am not familiar with that last bit. I have definitely seen the first two where once you finish account linking, you'll get a discovery event, and you can also say discover my devices to discover all the devices on your network. I'll have to check into that discovery request happening every few hours in the background. I assume you're seeing this in your CloudWatch, right? You're seeing the logs saying that there's, you can see that activity because you're logging it, right? Maybe we can follow up on Slack and get to the bottom of that one.
We are quickly running out of time, but my consumer experience with Ren's question is that yes, in fact, there must be a regular poll of discovery requests because there are times where I open the app and it's like, hey, I just found 2 new light bulbs. And it didn't do that as I opened the app. It must have already known. So there has to be some kind of polling done. I don't know how regular that cadence is, and I don't know anything about the actual technical implementation of that. But as a consumer, I do get the vibe that, yes, it is checking regularly to see if new devices are on my network.
Yes. Yeah, let me look into that one, and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I'll take a note for that one.
Gavin's got a long question here. We get occasional questions from customers stating that Alexa stops understanding their invocation name. What is the best way to report this? Is it to contact us, and what might be the cause? I suspect that Alexa is tweaking things in the background, but wonder what may cause this. I have a contact open for weeks now, but no explanation on what the cause and solution may be. Well, I was going to say, if you haven't opened a Contact Us, you certainly should. Contact Us is the right way to go with this. Another recommendation that I have, though, and this is a way for you to verify that things have changed, is in the developer console itself. I'll share my screen one more time. We're going to run a little late here. I hope everybody's okay with that, but I want to get through some of this.
I need to drop.
Okay, and that's okay. I'll stick around for a little bit longer, but I want to just make sure everybody is aware that these things exist, because this is a way for you to know that things have changed. So if I go to my interaction model, Andy, did you already leave? Andy's already left. So it's just me. Okay. So here in the interaction model, if I go to my intents, up here in the top right corner, we have this evaluate model button. And if I click on this, you have 3 tools that are available to you here. I don't know if everybody uses these. I feel like I talk about them all the time, but it's good to know. The first one is NOU evaluation. This allows you to create what we call annotation sets. And these annotation sets are basically unit tests. They say, when I say this word or this phrase, I expect this to happen. You can run these tests over and over and over. I recommend building out a lot of these tests before you then start building your skill. And then you can run the tests continuously to see when you've passed those tests. You just come in and say, run this thing, and it'll run another iteration of it. It'll tell you if it failed. And then if you dive into it, it'll actually show you like, oh, well, you were expecting to have a value called machine, and you expected a value in that slot to be called wild cherry. None of that came through, so you failed. But I was expecting that when they say this, that I would get those values, and it didn't happen. But this is all text-based. So I'm still submitting text values to say, hey, this is what I expect to have happen. But in a real-world test, we would be testing against voice. And that's where this ASR evaluation test comes in. Same idea, same unit test kind of situation, except that instead of giving it situations, you can record an audio right here that says, open my skill or do this thing or whatever. And then you can see what the expected transcription of that thing should be. This is really useful for you to say, hey, you know what? This test used to pass and now it doesn't. Something must have changed, or we should take a look at it or whatever. Very worthwhile to build yourself a robust set of tests, not just for ASR, but also for the NOU stuff. And in either case, by running these, you'll have a very good insight into what's going on and how it's all working. Okay, that was a lot. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let's just turn that off. There we go. So hopefully, Gavin, that helps a little bit, but Contact Us is the right approach. I will tell you that the folks in our developer advocacy group that run the Contact Us responses had a pretty major amount of people, a major shortage of people. And they are in the process right now. They've hired, I think, 2 or 3 in the last week. So they are making their way back. They're working through that backlog, but it's slower going than they'd like. They like 48-hour turnaround times, and I know it's far beyond that, but they've really had some pretty significant hiring challenges. So they're working through that. What could be the issue with users not being able to access the beta version of my skill? I have some users on already, but a few of my users aren't able to invoke the skill after enabling. I don't have a good answer for you on that one. If they were able to get the link from you and enable the skill, then it should work. I'm not aware of any issues that would prevent beta users from using a skill. I don't have a fantastic answer for you on that one. Agency 2, I saw your messages on Slack. I think the challenge you have right now is that, and this is just my suspicion, I'm not making any judgments here, but I think what you're trying to do, which is to put Alexa devices in businesses to help the businesses run the businesses, they view as a commercial application rather than a consumer application. The people that are using the Alexa devices are not consumers, like generic consumers across the globe, but instead it's a very niche set of people using devices in very specific businesses. So in other words, your skill would not be available to the public is a good way to think about that. That is my thought on why you are getting that kind of response. Let's see what Dana Voice was talking about. Okay. And I think I've caught up all the way. So we only ran a few minutes over. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. I want to thank Ryan and Andy for being here and offering their insights. Agency, I totally agree with you. The challenge is that Alexa skills, as they are constructed and built, are meant for consumer interactions. If you put a skill in the skill store, it needs to be usable by everyone. And your skill certainly wouldn't be. I think there is a solution for you, which is to go an Alexa for Business route, where now, I think you were describing anyway in the things that we've talked about. you would be putting Alexa devices in these businesses. You would own and operate them. I think that's how you described it. And so if that's the case, then Alexa for Business is the perfect model for you. It would work fine. It's just a different approach. That's all. Because then your skill wouldn't be available to the public. Dana, how do they know this stuff about his skill? There have been pages and pages of conversations back and forth between agency and our Contact Us team and our product teams and me. So there's lots and lots of conversation logs and explanations and certification processes and all that kind of stuff. So that is the answer to that. So thank you guys all for tuning in. We will see you again next Tuesday. I always love this hour of my week, and I look forward to seeing you guys all again soon.